much more efficient. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Nuclear is also, that's total baseload. You can't ramp up and down a nuclear power plant at all. One thing you do, by the way, right now, to raise that demand curve, you can actually drive the baseload above the trough, and then there are multiple technologies to try and store that energy. As crazy as it sounds, if you have a nuclear power plant that's producing energy that the grid doesn't need, you can use it to pump water uphill, and then fill up a dam where there's a hydroelectric plant, and then you can draw that power out the next day when you need it. Or you can compress air in a cave or in a tank, or you can move a flywheel. There are different ways to capture the energy, but it's all about optimizing the system and leveling the demand curve.
I like those ideas.
Sorry?
I like those ideas. That's always not used as the way.
You know, the question you posed to me, I'm not sure I fully understood it. In the batteries, I don't think, the trucks currently now, the electric trucks are storing the energy. I don't think those are based on lithium. They're on lead. The engine, the electric engine, I'm not sure those use a lot of lithium either.
I thought it was the engines for like the hybrid, like I don't know much about the NASCAR motors for sorry, I like this guys. I know that Prius and the smaller car hybrids, they run on lithium ion batteries.
Okay.
So that's what consumers will be driving.
I think there needs to be a lot of progress in the engine as well as the battery technologies going forward. Whether that ends up being lithium or based on lithium or whatever metal, that'll basically take care of itself.
I mean, if you want to talk about one of the hottest areas for research, it is in batteries. And it's a competition. Lead is still a viable alternative, as much as people think the technology is not. Nickel cadmium, nickel hydrides, lithium. And the idea that, lithium is a scarce resource, I get a lot of pushback. Right now the big question is, okay, Bolivia has, 50% of the world's reserves, 50% of the world's known reserves. And there's a lot of question out there, what are the actual reserves of lithium? And then even if necessary, you can mine lithium from the ocean, as strange as that sounds as well. So we're only tapping the beginnings of this, but I would also add that for electrics and hybrids to be viable on a sustainable basis, those batteries have to be recycled. They have to be. And frankly, I think it's a poor business model to expect the owner to own those batteries. I would not want to buy a car where I own those batteries. I want to give them back when I'm done. I think that's critical to the business model.
The other thing we need to get away from, most of the elements, the metals that you mentioned are very toxic. The cadmium, the lead, all of those. We need to not just come up with a battery that's very efficient, but one that doesn't use these elements that are so toxic, because eventually they are going to end up in the environment. So that needs to be a focus.
Other questions? Yes?
My name is Greg Lee, again, recent graduate of Brennan School of Business. So many of the renewable energy opportunities now are available or affordable because of government incentives, tax rates, and incentives from the perspective of minimum renewable energy requirements in the future. So both from the incentive side and from the cost side, governments are very involved with renewable energy. How is it possible to make that more of a global incentive rather than individual governments, many of which haven't even considered making renewable energy in their own countries?
Maybe I can start with this. One of my slides in my presentation was talking about subsidies, and this is used by a lot of governments to sort of stimulate certain industries, and our country is no different than any other. They'll all say we're sort of behind China. China has a smaller GDP than us and is investing 4 times the amount of money into renewables. Think about what China is trying to do here. They are already sort of the manufacturer to the world. You go to any Walmart, I mean, that's all China made. Plus, they want to become the green tech center for the world as well. We were talking about minerals. China also owns many of the rare earth minerals as well. That's used in a lot of these sort of high-tech batteries, and as well as many of these sort of new computers. So it's something where, as much as we, as a country, are sort of doing, and the two parties fight about how much government should be doing. When you look at it on a global level, we are far behind China and a lot of Europe. So it's something that, I'm glad you brought up the question, because I think it's something, and I sort of mentioned in my talk, is we, as a country and as citizens, need to have this sort of elevated consciousness that this is a race, and if we, how do I plight this without alarming, but we stand a great chance of losing empire status if we don't invest our chips the right way. You look at the innovation of like a Thomas Edison or a Ford, or in recent history of a Steve Jobs. This happened because there was an imagination that was sort of captured. These subsidies and sorts of government incentives can help young entrepreneurs like me to say, you know what, this is worthwhile. Because there's a certain point of where a lot of other countries have sort of protected their own internal industries with certain tariffs and whatnot, especially thinking of like the car industry and whatnot in other countries like over in Europe and Asia. And I think that's something where we need to build this ourselves. We cannot fall back on us being a service-oriented country and just think we're going to buy our way out of this. We will have to do this, period. And I think government incentives can be a way to sort of be that spark or that catalyst to that.
No, I agree with that. In terms of the incentives, we got $40 million to develop this electric truck. I mean, the idea is that as you produce more, you get economies of scale, the price can come down, and then you're off on your own. It's a way to launch things. Now, the other way that governments incent other countries to develop cleaner technologies is our regulations. For example, if China or any other country wants to sell trucks in the United States, it has to meet very stringent emission standards. They have to lower particle emissions from those trucks to near zero levels, NOx near zero, hydrocarbons, everything has to come down. So if you want to sell into this market, the same in the EU, you have to meet these very stringent standards. And the other countries, China and India, are gradually developing those standards. They're not there, and they're not going to be there for a while. But that's a very important way that our government can drive the world economy in terms of sustainability. And we'll do the same thing with CO2 emissions. California has a certain percentage of vehicles that have to be zero emissions, i.e. electric vehicles. That's how you can do that. And California ends up driving the whole U.S. Because what company is going to sell just into the rest of the U.S. and not California? You can develop products that will go into the entire U.S. And they end up driving the whole world with their emission standards.
And I think Kyoto is designed to create that global standard, but I don't think it's necessarily needed to stimulate innovation. What you really want to do is create pockets of innovation where they build on each other. I grew up in Boston, and the governor of Massachusetts decided biotech was the future of the region, and created tax incentives, and now it's an amazing engine of innovation.